Governor Cuomo calls on all the Democratic presidential candidates to endorse a pledge to make America safer from gun violence and hate. He wants them to follow New York's lead on gun control and gun safety. The governor joining us now. Governor Cuomo, thanks so much for being with us. Always appreciate your time. I just want to rattle off what this four-point plan includes: outlining assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, creating a mental health database to prevent the dangerously mentally ill from purchasing a firearm, passing universal background checks, closing the private gun sales loophole, and passing red flag legislation preventing individuals who pose a risk to themselves or others while purchasing a firearm. Governor, again, thanks for being here. So this is a challenge to all the Democratic candidates running for president, but I guess some would say it's really not the Democratic candidates that are the issue, it's really the Republicans. So what do you want to accomplish? What do you hope this accomplishes, this pledge?
Well, good morning, Rocco. Thank you for having me. It is the Republicans that are resistant to it. But the Democrats have to frame the choice for the American people. You know, right now, there's just a lot of noise. The Republicans say this, the Democrats say this. Everybody's making a charge, a countercharge. The Democratic presidential candidates all say we want safer, better gun laws, but I can't even figure out what their positions are and how different they are. This is a moment for change. We had a moment for change after Sandy Hook, Connecticut. In New York, we stepped up and we did it. But the moment doesn't happen, Rocco, without leadership. And I'm saying the Democratic Party should now lead and frame the issue and be clear the juxtaposition between the Democratic position and the Republican position. And every Democratic candidate should have the same basic position. What we did in New York 6 years ago, what we proved worked. We don't have to experiment. We were the laboratory. We passed the SAFE Act 6 years ago, the best gun control law in the United States of America, and it worked. And that's what these 4 points are. No assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, universal background check for everyone on any gun purchase, mental health database, where, Rocco, we have 100,000 people since we passed the law who are now on our mental health database who could have bought a gun. These are seriously mentally ill people who could have bought a gun, 100,000 just in this state. And then the so-called red flag laws, which give people an alternative if they know someone is in trouble. Let all the candidates say, we will pass these laws, and then we can look at the Republicans and say, now, America, you have two options, option A and option B.
And, Governor, as you know, the House in February did approve some background checks and more stringent gun control legislation, co-sponsored also by Republican Peter King, along with Senator Chuck Schumer in the Senate. But Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, refuses to bring that up for a vote. Are you optimistic that this pressure will eventually lead to McConnell bringing this up for a vote?
Look, I am not optimistic that the Republicans are going to pass gun laws. I believe that's why the president went out of his way to blame everything but the gun laws. I mean, the president said something that he should apologize for. It was one of the worst lines of political rhetoric I ever heard. Mental illness pulled the trigger, not the gun. That is absurd. There is no trigger without the gun. Yeah. The trigger is on the gun. I mean, it was just a really foolish statement.
Why do you think he says those types of things? Do you think he really believes that? Is it are they calculated comments towards his base? Why do you think he says those kinds of things at a time when Americans want to hear more consoling words from the president?
Rocco, of course it's calculated. They don't want to pass any gun laws. I went through this in New York. We passed the SAFE Act 6 years ago. There were some Republicans, we had a Republican Senate at the time, there were some Republicans who actually stood up and took a really courageous vote against their own Republican Party. But the president is pandering to his base. His base is Second Amendment, don't pass any gun laws, slippery slope, you really want to take away my gun. So he blames everything else but the gun laws. And by the way, there are only two elements in this equation. It's hate plus a gun. Hate plus a gun. For the president to look at the American people and say, there's no place for hate, this is what he has marketed in this nation. This is what made him president. He is now reaping what he has sown. He unleashed the dogs of hate. And that's what you're seeing. You can't say I'm anti-Muslim, and you can't say we're being invaded by the immigrants, and see this whole white nationalist movement, which is actually an internal terrorist movement, develop and grow, and then turn around and say, oh, there's no place for hate. Now, the president did not create hate, Rocco. We know that.
Yeah.
In New York, we know that there's always been tension, but the president is a marketer first. Yeah. And he marketed the divisions. Divide and conquer, the oldest strategy in the book, and that's what he did. And he has now helped foment this insightful, angry, hateful culture that we have in this country, this virus of hate. But the second element is still the gun.
Governor, real quick.
And he won't pass gun safety.
Governor, real quick, even though New York already has the strongest gun laws in the country, you just recently signed even more gun control measures into law. What do you say to those gun owners here in the state, especially upstate New York? There are a lot of gun owners who are worried every time something like this happens, that they're worried that their rights are being trampled on when New York takes up gun control measures. What do you say to those gun owners, especially in upstate New York?
Yeah, well, yeah, and that's why it takes political courage, and that's why it takes leadership. And Rocco, that's why when I passed the law, I lost tremendous political points, because you have Republicans and conservatives who are afraid of the law. What I say to them is, I'm a gun owner. I own a gun. No one is talking about taking guns from legal owners. You want to hunt, God bless you. You want to pass on your gun to your child, God bless you. It's a beautiful American tradition. But you can separate that, you can protect legal owners and still outlaw assault weapons and keep guns out of the hands of mentally ill people and have red flag laws. It's not one or the other. And what we showed here in 6 years is we do have gun control laws, and there was no slippery slope. The NRA was full of baloney. This was all fear tactics. If government passes a law, they're not going to stop until they take your gun. 6 years, Rocco. New Yorkers are very outspoken. Yeah. No one has come up to me and said, I'm a legal gun owner, and you infringed on my rights, and Governor, because we didn't.
Governor, I do want to move on to another topic real quickly. Please answer this for us. It's been more than a year now since a couple of your associates, former associates, convicted of corruption in a state rigging scandal. But you and the state comptroller did promise to put in some measures into place to avoid something like this from happening in the future. We understand that these measures have not been implemented just yet. Can you tell us why, and what's the status of this right now?
Yeah, the comptroller and I agreed to measures that would be put in place. We announced them. The comptroller is a person of his word. The lawyers haven't worked out the language yet. They will shortly. But I have no doubt that the comptroller is going to do what he said he was going to do, and I know I'm going to do what I said I was going to do.
New Yorkers who may be skeptical, you can tell them that they should be optimistic that changes are coming, that there will be some changes when it comes to stopping corruption in Albany.
Look, New Yorkers are skeptical. I'm skeptical. I'm a born and bred New York City skeptic. The comptroller is a man of his word. I am a man of my word. There are two people. We both said we're going to do it. If somebody doesn't do it, there's only one or two people, the comptroller or myself. And I know the comptroller many years. He's not going to go backwards.
The buck stops with your office, I guess. Governor Cuomo, thank you so much for your time. I always appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks very much.